I'd raise with you the percentage of population of women, 50.5%. They make up 46.5% of the labor force and 45.7% of the employed labor force. So, walk with me a little bit here. Suppose I was to propose in this Senate that all women be given 36 to 60 days of unpaid leave every single year, or maybe even paid leave. I suspect everyone here would be gasping. What do you think would be the fallout of giving women 2 months unpaid leave per year? I suspect the Employers' Federation would be up in arms, and as an employer, I can appreciate that perspective as well. Mr. President, I think I have to warn you that I'm getting into what some might find an uncomfortable conversation, but I'm not making any apology for it. Because in the building of prosperity, we have to deal with matters that we might find uncomfortable. Mr. President, in 2023, we still have women who must opt out of productive life because of the inability to afford a most basic and necessary component essential to their productivity. And I'm talking here, Mr. President, about the women and girls in our country who are enduring period poverty. What does that mean? The United Nations Fund for Population Activities describes period poverty as the struggle many low-income women and girls face while trying to afford menstrual products. The term also refers to the increased economic vulnerability that they face due to the financial burden posed by the supplies. These include not only the menstrual pads and tampons, but also related costs such as pain medication and, believe it or not, something as simple as underwear. Mr. President, a check of just 3 major supermarkets indicated that at the low end, period products can cost anywhere from $200 per pack of $10 to $500. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists recommend changing sanitary material every 4 to 8 hours. I don't know if our medical association has a recommendation on that score. I was unable to find that information. But of course, how many packs of 10 a woman needs in each cycle, each monthly cycle, will depend on how heavy her flow is, how absorbent the material is, and it can last 3 to 5 days. We're talking about 3 to 5 days on average each month. Mr. President, I'm willing to bet you never thought in your tenure as president you'd be listening to a presentation talking about women's periods. But this is one of the things that in the building of prosperity I'm calling us to take account of, because it is easy to unintentionally overlook these issues. It's not just an issue of affordability, Mr. President. It's an issue of reproductive health and an issue of basic human dignity. Without access to menstrual supplies, girls may resort to using toilet paper, dirty rags, leaves. There are accounts of girls using banana leaves, or even using a sanitary pad for more than 1 day, which is not recommended, Mr. President. This can cause infections and other medical issues. If our women don't have access to clean water, the situation can be further exacerbated, making it difficult for them to hygienically manage their periods. Thankfully, Minister Samuda is working hard to make the issue of lack of access to water a distant memory, and I have my money betting on him. Mr. President, the Global Development Commons was launched during the 75th United Nations General Assembly in September 2020. The GDC is an open access digital platform to crowdsource evidence and innovations to support the child-focused sustainable development goals. It's a digital space for discussion and problem solving, and it's accessible publicly and across sectors. If you take a look at the GDC, you will see reports that period poverty can negatively affect mental health, with women who suffer from period poverty being more likely to report moderate to severe depression. Teen girls in particular may also feel isolated and lonely if they can't talk to anyone about what they're experiencing, especially at a time when they are likely to be heavily influenced by the opinions of their peers. Mr. President, the reality of period poverty is not just a Jamaican problem. It exists in developing countries and also too in developed countries. Some countries have taken steps to remove consumption tax from sanitary products. Thankfully, and I recognize and give credit to the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, Jamaica did this some time ago, exempting sanitary products from GCT. But, Mr. President, there's still other duties and fees that apply, which include import duties of 20%, a standard compliance fee of 0.3%, and an environmental levy of 0.5%, and as well a customs administration fee. So the cost of the product includes at least, before you do any markup, a 20.8% increase in the cost. The fact is that the vast majority of sanitary products are imported. Very few are made here in Jamaica. And while the quality made here in Jamaica is excellent, the cost is higher than the imported brands. Mr. President, whether these fees can be removed is an assessment that must be undertaken by the Ministry of Finance. And I implore the Minister, for whom I have the greatest regard, for his competence and his people-centric consciousness, to take a look at how we can best make these products as affordable as possible. There are various ways, Mr. President, to ensure an end to period poverty. If you can imagine that women and girls who are PATH beneficiaries and on the school feeding program are unable to afford school lunches and breakfast, then you can imagine that ending period poverty may very well be something that can be fixed under the PATH program. Certainly, access to period products could possibly be funded and delivered through the distributive network of the PATH program. But there are other mechanisms that may support reaching the women and girls affected by period poverty. For instance, the National Health Fund, which was established, among other things, to provide prescribed health benefits to all residents, regardless of age, gender, health, or economic status, to make pharmaceutical and medical supplies accessible and available to government-owned health facilities, and importantly, to secure improvement in the productivity of residents by reducing time lost on the job that is attributable to personal and family health care problems. Well, a period is not a disease. It is something which, if not dealt with in a hygienic manner, may lead to disease, and certainly can lead to loss of productivity for those women unable to afford sanitary products to deal with monthly periods and absent themselves from work. The NHF, with its network of provider pharmacies and public pharmacies, may well be placed to ensure the distribution of period products to our vulnerable women and girls. And I ask, Mr. President, that in the appropriate places, consideration be given to how we can achieve this. Mr. President, I make no definitive recommendation because more needs to be understood in terms of how many of our women and girls are impacted. I want to recognize at this juncture, Mr. President, the HerFlow Foundation, which was founded by Ms. Shelly-Ann Weeks, and Shelly-Ann is in the gallery. Shelly-Ann, just wave so we can recognize you. Thank you. She's probably the most seminal person in Jamaica at the forefront of tackling this problem. She has, with her own time and resources and the support of kind partners, driven the length and breadth of Jamaica, delivering period products to girls in schools from Morant Point to Negril Point. She's a Jamaican patriot, Mr. President, and I want to recognize her and thank her for her service. Mr. President, the HerFlow Foundation conducted an informal survey in high schools throughout the length and breadth of Jamaica and uncovered that up to 44% of first formers are affected by period poverty. The survey also confirmed that some of them stay home while on their period, some ask the guidance counselor or other teachers for products, and still some resort to using alternatives like old cloths and banana leaves. Yeah, we are in 2023, and yeah, this is happening right here. So we need a study to determine how many working women may also be affected. It's not an affordability issue, it's a reproductive health issue. We have to be careful about how we contextualize it. It's not beyond us, Mr. President, and certainly it's in our collective interest to ensure that no girl or woman in Jamaica is without the necessary materials to go through menstruation without having to lose productive work time and attendance at school. Remember, Mr. President, I had asked initially if we'd be prepared to give women 60 days of unpaid or paid leave. And I am answering the question now. It's not in our interest, Mr. President, to lose the participation of our women for 3 to 5 days each month. What can amount to 2 months per year? It's a level of productivity we can ill afford. We must ensure that the 45% of our workforce that contribute to our national economy are not affected by period poverty and are able to fully participate in work and school and avoid the loss of potentially 2 months of absence that may currently be faced when there's an inability to afford the cost of sanitary products. It's my intention, Mr. President, to put this matter to the bicameral caucus of women parliamentarians when it meets. It's a national imperative. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. A study of the measure of the loss of productivity that we experience from this reality needs to be undertaken. And I'm confident, Mr. President, that having raised this issue, that our government will take a look at how we can address it as we move towards building prosperity.